verse 16. Psalm 105 and 16. You know, some things you read in the Bible you just cannot get around. I mean, you could choose to ignore it if you want to, but it's still there though, ain't it? It ain't going nowhere. It's not going to change. And because men don't believe it, that's not going to change nothing. Psalms 105 and 16. So a lot of people read this and say, well, no, they try to make excuses. Well, what about the sun? Couldn't the sun been on them? Yeah, the sun on you too. So, you know, did you turn black like an oven? You know, you're a Gentile, you know, because I had a Gentile tell me that one time. Well, couldn't it be because they was in the sun? I said, you standing in the sun now. You still Gentile, you still white. You got people in Africa now, where it's hot is, you know, 120 degrees in some cases. They still white. Just go look on TV. Just Nelson Mandela's funeral. You see a bunch of white people. What's his name? The used to be the president. He's still white, ain't he? So white people don't turn black because they're in the sun. They might get a shade too darker, but they're not gonna turn black. He said our skin was black like an oven. Psalm 105 and 16. Go ahead and read.
Yes, sir. Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He break the whole staff of bread.
See, because God know how to get your attention. He'll say, okay, I'll just put a famine on them then and let them starve. Then they got to call on me then. That's how he did them. He know how to get a whole nation at one time. Get your attention. He said, moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He break the whole staff of bread. Go ahead.
Verse 17. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant.
Now we're going to find out who this Joseph is in just a minute. But go ahead.
Whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. And king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance, to bind his princes at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom.
Now look at all this Joseph did. Look at all this Joseph did. The Lord set him up as viceroy in Egypt. You know, he's second in command. Read that verse 23.
Israel also came into Egypt. And Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
Now he said Israel also came into Egypt, because that's where Joseph went. He went down in Egypt. He said, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham. Now, you know, we're going to find out this land of Ham and everything, where this is. But we already see that Joseph was in Egypt, and now Jacob is going into Egypt too, right? But Jacob came from the land of Canaan before he went down into Egypt. First, let's go to Exodus, the first chapter, Exodus 1. Exodus 1, and we're going to pick it up at verse, let's pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 1 and 1. Go ahead and read it.
Now these are the names of the children of Israel.
Now he said the children of Israel, go ahead.
Which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher.
That's 11. Go ahead.
And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already.
For Joseph was in Egypt already. Now what is Joseph doing in Egypt? What is he doing in Egypt? Before we get to that, because we saw that, you know, Pharaoh made him, you know, rule in his house, didn't he?
Yeah.
Let's before we get to that, let's do Noah's descendants real quick. Ham and Shem real quick. Then we're going to get back to Joseph. First Chronicles, the first chapter. First Chronicles, the first chapter. Sometimes, you know, you got to do this. You got to run down people in order to show who people are. Because if you don't, then you're gonna get it mixed up. You don't know who is who. So sometimes you gotta lay the groundwork. And you gotta go in here and search this thing out and find out who is who and show who is who. Let's go to 1 Chronicles, the 1st chapter and verse 4. 1 Chronicles, the 1st chapter and verse 4.
Excuse me for a moment. The features are showing on the camera. How do you take those off?
Okay.
Please bear with us, so we'll be right back. Having a little technical difficulties, I should say.
It shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we're at 1 Chronicles, the 1st chapter, and we're gonna pick it up at verse 4. We're gonna, because you know we dealt with Noah's descendants, one of his descendants already pretty much, and that was Japhet, which we know the Gentiles came out of Japhet, right? Which the white people, right? So we only got 2 sons left, Ham and Shem, right? So now, we're gonna start at, let's read in verse 4. Start at verse 4. Go ahead and read.
Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Noah, Shem, Ham, and who? Japheth. So we know the Gentiles came out of Japheth, which we call Caucasian people. Skip down. Now we're gonna deal with Ham and Shem. But first, skip down to verse 8. Go ahead and read it.
The sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, Put, and Canaan.
So now, Ham had 4 sons right here. Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Skip down to verse 11. Let's deal with Mizraim. Go ahead.
And Mizraim begat Ludum, and Anaman, and Lahabim, and Naphtahim, and Phutrusim, and Kaluhim, of whom came the Philistines.
So the Philistines came out of Mizraim. You see that? Who Israel used to war against all the time. The Philistines. Read a little more.
And Caphtorim, and the Canaan, and Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn, and Heth.
Now we dealing with Canaan now. He said Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn, and Heth. Go ahead and read.
14. The Jebusite also, the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Havite, and the Arkite, and the Sinite, and Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite.
Now these are all sons of Canaan. Noah's, Ham's 4th son, Canaan. These are his children. The Zidon, his firstborn, Heth, and the Jebusites, and the Ammonites, and the Girgashites. These are his sons. Now go to the verse 24.
Shem, Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Ruah, Serug, Nahor, Terah, Abram, the same as Abraham.
Go ahead.
The sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael.
Stop right there. The sons of Abraham. So now we at Shem now, right? So now we know which child or which seed the Israelites came out of, now don't we?
Yes, sir.
They came out of Shem. So they didn't come out of Ham, right? They came out of Shem. They didn't come out of Japheth, did they?
No, sir.
Came out of Shem, didn't they?
That's right. Yes, sir.
So we got the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, right? Now we're going to skip down to verse 34. Skip down to verse 30. We're going to make this ironclad. Skip down to verse 34. Rick, go ahead.
And Abraham begot Isaac. The sons of Isaac, Esau, and Israel.
Now we know who Israel came out of, right? We know where Israel came. It came out of Shem. Let's go now. Let's go look up somebody here. We're going to look up Mizraim. We're going to deal with Mizraim first. Because Mizraim plays an important role in the children of ancient Israel, played an important role in their history. So we're going to show you who this Mizraim is. Go ahead and read that, then we're going to go to the next one.
Excuse me.
Who is Mizraim? This is Altenheimer Bible Dictionary.
Bible Dictionary, yes sir. Mizraim. It says in parentheses, red soil,
Uh-huh.
son of Ham.
Son of Ham, go ahead.
The Old Testament word translated Egypt.
The Old Testament word translated what?
Egypt.
Egypt. So Mizraim, not only did he have the Philistines, but he had the Egyptians too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, go look up the word Egypt now. What does that say?
Okay, it says Egypt.
Uh-huh.
Says in the parentheses, Coptic land. Northeastern country of Africa.
Hold it now. It's a northeastern country in Africa. Go ahead.
The Hebrew.
Uh-huh.
Mizraim.
Well, how do you say Egypt in Hebrew? Mizraim. So now who we dealing with now? We dealing with some black people here, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
We're going to show you some black history today. We're going to show you some black history today. So Mizraim, that's Egypt then, ain't it?
Yes, sir.
Let's go now. We're going to look at something right here. We're going to show you a couple of pictures of some Egyptians. We're going to read you this real quick. I guess we won't